like I was saying before, like more and more these days, I'm just being honest about my diet, and I just don't care.
Alex, how did you find Carnivore?
Yeah, g'day, Dave. Good to be here. So I think it's the pretty common way of going through YouTube, um, getting into the keto space and the low sugar and all sort of stuff, and then just seeing what that did to my body. And then from there, you start to listen to people like Dr. Ken Berry and Anthony Chapey and all the big heavyweights. And then, initially you think that this carnivore is this crazy extreme diet, and then you start to try it yourself, and then you realize how good you feel on it. And I think it's just, yeah, from there. And but yeah, just through YouTube and listening to people, and then trying it myself and realizing that isn't as extreme as I once thought it was.
Was there some reason you were seeking this out, like for pain relief, weight loss, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, so I used to be a lot bigger, um, sort of over the sort of 100 kilo mark, and my eldest brother actually got into this space before I did, and he lost a lot of weight, and he was a lot healthier, and I, obviously was curious, and he wasn't doing the carnivore stuff, but just the low carb, and then I started to try it, and I noticed, within just a couple of weeks, I was just losing weight very, very quickly. And, being in the health industry, I sort of, wanted to be a lot healthier looking and feel better. And, I wanted to feel good in the gym as well. And once I started to lose the weight, I was sort of thinking, this seems easier than I thought it was. Um, and, I got some friends that are close to me on it as well. And they lost weight, very, very quickly, and started to feel a lot better. So that's when, you know, the rabbit hole opened, and I just started to look into this, and realize that it wasn't about your calories in and calories out. It was just about, stop, eating all the crap that we've been getting fed for years. And, I can go back to when I was a little kid, and, I come from a medical family, but we were eating, cereal and bread and peanut butter and Nutella and just crap every single day. And the damage that must have done to not only me, but all the other kids that were doing it at school. Um, so yeah, it's annoying and frustrating, but you can't change the past. You can only change what you do now, and try and influence other people to jump on the bandwagon. But as a physio, what I'm starting to realize now, and the difficulty is, patients who are on a really bad diet, which they think is normal, trying to convince them to eat a bit healthier is very, very difficult. And I have to kind of bite my tongue a little bit, because I'm a physio, not a dietitian. But some of the things that, patients come in and tell me that their doctor has advised or their dietitian has advised, you know, it gets quite depressing, what they're eating. And then obviously with their physical health, that starts to deteriorate as well. And, not only is exercise going to fix it, they've got to change their diet. And that's the difficulty I'm finding, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to chat to you, is to talk about some of the things that I've heard doctors say to people and dietitians. And we're fighting an uphill battle, but hopefully in time this can become sort of more common knowledge. But yeah, it's tricky.
I mean, I can probably imagine what some dietitians would be saying, but like what kind of diets are they recommending patients? And is it for like blood glucose control and things like that that they're putting them on, I don't know, a high carb diet or something?
Well, normally the first thing I hear is I ask a patient, "Oh, how's your diet?" and they say, "Oh, I don't eat hardly any red meat." And that's one of the first things they say. And to us, we're like, "Red meat? What are you talking about? That's the healthiest thing, particularly fatty red meat." And if they do eat red meat, they say it's very, very lean, or they're eating kangaroo instead, because we know kangaroo is lean. So that's one of the first things they say. But they say, "Oh, I'm trying to eat, all the colors of the rainbow and the vegetables and the fruit." oats in the morning. That's the classic one. This rolled oats in the morning thing. I don't understand it. I couldn't think of anything more unhealthy to start the day with. And yeah, so usually it's don't eat meat because that's going to raise your cholesterol, and high cholesterol is bad. And there's so many doctors, including doctors within my family who I won't name, they're still holding on to this cholesterol thing, that if your cholesterol is really high, then you must be unhealthy. Despite all your other numbers being really, really good. Um, and that's the uphill battle. And until we can get the research out, or something to put that to bed, it's going to continue to happen for the next 10, 20 years. Um, but yeah, the diets they're putting them on, look, sometimes I guess they're healthy-ish. They love the dietitians love to use this word Mediterranean diet, whatever the hell that means. I'm assuming it just means extra olive oil with vegetables and a little bit of fish. But the Mediterranean's also eat a lot of pasta and bread, so I can't see how that's healthy. But look, sometimes if I've been seeing a patient for a few weeks, I just be like, all right, this is the way it is. I'm a low carb person. I eat this carnivore diet. You should try this. And sometimes I put a few podcasts to them, and I always sort of think, oh, please don't tell your doctor I said that. But that's the problem I'm dealing with. I'm worried that the doctors are going to hear that, oh, there's a good physio who's recommending these extreme diets, and I've got to think of my business and my reputation. Yeah, so it's frustrating.
So, like the fact that it is this situation that makes you so frustrated makes me frustrated hearing about it, because I think it's just so it's the same when you have bureaucracy in a business. You want to just get to the solution. You just want
Mm,
to cut the corners and get to the solution and fix it, because the problem is over there.
yeah,
And you can't, because there's too many obstacles in the way. There's a doctor that's gonna, get butthurt because, the patient's not taking his advice, and the dietitian likewise. Um,
mm,
so like, if you were to just say to the patient, look, I know your doctor's told you this, but let me tell you what I'm doing with my diet, and then you decide what you want to try and
mm.
whatever. Like, would you get into trouble for that?
Oh, I've done exactly that. Um,
Hmm.
I haven't been in trouble, but if your word gets back to the doctor that that's what he or she said, then the doctor's probably going to be like, maybe you should stop listening to his advice, or and I don't know that that's happened for a fact, but I would assume there'd be a few patients that I've spoken to have gone back and said something, but it's just a story. For example, like um, I've had a lady who's had a terrible chronic neck and shoulder issues for years, sort of nerve related, and I've done well with her through exercise and manual therapy, and she's feeling a lot better, but she's still in a lot of pain. And then one day randomly she just said to me, "Oh, yeah, I used to be on this keto diet about 5 years ago, and looking back, that's probably the best I've ever felt. I didn't have any pain, but I went to the doctor, and he looked at my bloods and told me to stop this diet immediately because you're going to die because your cholesterol's super high." And I said, "Was everything else okay?" And she goes, "Oh, I don't know," but he was that concerned. And then she just went back to her regular way of eating, and then all her problems returned. And that's when I intervened, and I just sort of said to her, like, "Hello, do you think that there's a problem here? Like, you're feeling really good and you were eating like this." Like, so I haven't seen her since, but we'll see what happens. Not because she cancelled, but because I finished my treatment with her. But and these doctors, these are friends of mine. So these are doctors that refer patients to me. So I've got to tread very, very carefully. Um, so yeah, but there's countless stories like that where people come in and say, "I was eating like this, I was feeling really good, and then my doctor said to stop it." Um, yeah.
I I I I can imagine how frustrating it must be for you, because you see patients who are basically starving their body of the nutrition it needs to repair itself,
Mm. Mm.
and you're kind of stuck. You can't do anything
Yeah,
except what you can do through physio, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And oh, and on the other spectrum is the vegans that come in and have got a myriad of issues, physical issues with them, and then they tell you they've been eating vegan for years, and they're just like wasted away, or they're kind of obese because we know as a vegan you fill up on carbs and all sort of stuff, right? But you mentioned, oh, I think you should start eating meat, and then they're like, what are you talking about? The veganism's the healthiest thing, and so that's the other side of it. But yeah, it's frustrating. But look, I'm a fairly outspoken kind of guy, and sometimes I just think, well, if I don't say something, then nothing's going to change, right? So, but I'd happily debate these doctors and just talk to them. I've a few of them that are my friends. I've mentioned to them about the cholesterol thing, and I find the younger doctors, they're starting to change their tune a little bit, and they sort of say, well, traditionally doctors were taught if LDL and total cholesterol is high, then they've got to be on a statin or else they're going to die. But I think these days the young doctors are being taught with it's this relative risk thing, so it's got to be a bunch of things for the cholesterol to mean they're in trouble. If it's just the cholesterol, then maybe they're not as bad as we once thought. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I wish cholesterol didn't exist because it's the reason why the carnivore diet and the keto diet's not right front and center, the number one diet to recommend to patients. Because if it wasn't a thing, I think it'd be game over. It really would. That's the one thing they're holding on to. Um,
Yeah, it seems to be the major distraction point for everyone, for most doctors, right? It's like I've just spoken to a gentleman in Australia actually who for 38 years he was on insulin,
mm,
and his A1C was like 9,
mm,
and he's gone carnivore. He's finally got off insulin. First time in 38 years, his A1C is down to 6, and all the doctor is concerned about is, "Oh, be your cholesterol." No, "Oh, good job on getting rid of that insulin and all that." None of that. It's just, "Yeah, your cholesterol. Sorry, buddy. We're gonna have to do something about that."
yeah, yeah, and even some really close friends of mine who are really into their fitness and healthy eating, like um, they'll get their bloods done, and then because they're eating a low carb diet and they're so fit, their cholesterol all the time is high. And then they go see their doctor, and the doctor's really, really worried. And I just say to them, "Look, if you're concerned, and you shouldn't be, just get a CT scan of your arteries. If there's no atherosclerosis on your arteries, then we know that you're not at risk." So I think the testing needs to be different. We can't just keep using a standard blood test to decipher whether you're at risk of serious cardiovascular, particularly if all your other numbers are good, right? But you got to remember that some of these cholesterol readings that these healthy people are getting, they're sky high. So it can be scary for a doctor to see that and a patient to see that. But yeah, I don't know. Like I can ask you, like, do you know if there's some research being done that can disprove this high cholesterol hypothesis? Because if it's not done in the next 5 or 10 years, it's going to remain a problem. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's the research that people like Dave Feldman and Nick Norwitz are doing,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
the I have seen that they talk about the lean mass hyperresponder and all that kind of thing. But at this stage, the thing I've looked the most into and the thing that makes the most sense to me is the lipid energy model that they're talking about,
yeah, yeah.
because that would explain why for example, my LDL is so high. That would
Mm,
explain why the majority of super lean carnivores have really high LDL.
mm.
It just makes sense. You depleted all the glycogen in your liver, and so your liver starts trafficking more LDL around your body for energy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you see the amount of pushback that they get on Twitter, and like from these eminent professors and these people, these lipidologists, these cardiologists, that are famous world over, and they're behaving like mean girls on Twitter. It's like because I think it's kind of bruising to the ego in some way to have the um the hypothesis that you've built your whole life and career on, have someone come out and say, well, I'm not sure this is 100% correct, or I think we need to relook at this. And they're not even saying this is the way. They're just saying, well, this is what we think's going on.
Exactly.
But they're just getting so much pushback.
Yeah, well, I guess they probably think that their livelihoods are threatened, right? So if the evidence changes and the guidelines change, they're probably thinking, "Oh, am I even going to have a job, right? Am I going to be able to make money prescribing statins and all these things?" And that's what we're dealing with. Um, so yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do about that. I hope that and trust the scientific community can do these studies properly. And that's the other thing. Like I don't know if you've heard of that program called Zoe on YouTube. Um,
Oh yeah, I've seen the channel. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I was watching that for some time, and I've stopped, and I'll tell you why in a second. But at least they were talking about the ultra processed food is really really bad for you and stuff, and I was 100% agree with that. But then they did a series where they were just having a look at these sort of fad diets, and I was surprised that actually carnivore was one of them. And the guy that was doing that was interviewing, I can't remember his name, but he's the one that did that big vegan study on Netflix. The one that came out about 4 months ago. You are what you eat, or something, and they compared omnivores to vegans, and they found that vegans after 1 month were healthier. It was a twin study, obviously a terrible study, and we know they were funded by Beyond Meat or something like that. But he was asked about the carnivore diet, and without having any experience in it, he just straight away said, "No, nah, this diet's rubbish." And you could never perform studies because it's unethical to put someone on that much meat. Unethical. That was his reason. So, and he's the top of the top nutrition scientists. So they don't even want to do the studies because they think it's unethical. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about that. You know.
Yeah, I mean the issue is really, I mean, regardless what the study is, this they I think they can't get the go ahead to move forward with any nutrition study, proper nutrition study, because it's not ethical to do, regardless whether it's about meat or whatever. But to do a proper randomized control trial, but um, that's the problem in this area, right? So he says it's not ethical, but he's only giving you half the picture because he wants to prove his point. So he only says it about the meat side of things, like doing a trial of that as the unethical part. But they can't there's because there's no nutrition science.
No.
It's all just epidemiological rubbish. It's all just questionnaires. And did you eat meat this week? Oh, we all had a Big Mac. So yeah, yes, I did. It's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all funded by big pharma and the food industries that a lot of people don't recognise.
Yeah, I mean, because the one thing you've also got to look at, I guess, is um, it's all very fuzzy. It's all very blurry. It's all very vague. There's not really, like, for the average person, where to think about, like, what's the best thing for me to eat. If they actually tried to investigate it to any degree, they just go, oh, it's all too confusing. They throw up their hands and they go, I'm just going to eat the way I want. Who does that benefit? It benefits big food and big pharma, right?
Yeah.
So
I,
having
I see it all the time. People just are frustrated and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to eat the way I want. I want to enjoy my life." and then you just see them get bigger and bigger and get more and more unhealthy, and then all these other problems start presenting themselves. But like I think the silver lining is that I think people are starting to wake up, and that's because of things like YouTube. So let's just hope that YouTube doesn't turn um, cut down the carnivore community, particularly with the political age we're in, because I don't know if you know, Dave, but carnivores are now being labelled right-wing extremists. Have you heard about that one?
How does that work?
I don't know. Apparently, if you're a carnivore, you're a ultra conservative, and that's the latest strategy I've heard on Twitter. Is that yeah, if you're a carnivore, you're a right-wing extremist. So yeah,
Yeah, that it's and this is the problem actually with debates like this. When we're talking about whether it's carnivore and vegan or left and right or whatever it is that these days everyone seems to really want to put people into a box.
yeah,
You belong in this tribe, you belong in that tribe. It's not, well, you are thinking for yourself, you're thinking critically, you're asking questions about things, and you're not willing to just take as gospel the first thing that, the teacher or the authority says about the particular thing. You wanna
mm,
ask questions, you wanna push back. Oh, so obviously you're this kind of person.
mm, yeah,
And, yeah, this is what, and the long and the short of that is it serves one purpose and one purpose only, stifles debate, right?
yeah, exactly.
Mm,
You know, yeah. How
yeah,
dare you associate yourself with those kind of people? We don't want to
mm,
talk to you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
'cause I guess if they can put you in a particular box, then they can say, "Oh, well, so you're on this side of things, you're in this box, you're in this queue, so, there's nothing that we can take seriously about what you say."
mm,
Mm,
yeah. It's a shame. Um, but yeah, like as I was saying, I think there is a little bit of hope. People are starting to wake up, and they surely are realizing that the carnivore diet is not as extreme as we once thought. I would argue it's the least extreme because of the fact that you're not eating any of the processed garbage. I would think it's the least extreme in my opinion, but some people don't understand that logic. But yeah, just the way it makes you feel and the energy it gives you, it's just you're just like, whoa, I wish I'd been eating like this my whole life. And my next point I wanted to talk about, Dave, it's all right, is babies and carnivore. I don't know if you've spoken about this 21, but I'm at the age now where a lot of my friends and family are starting to have little kids. I don't have any myself, but I've just experimented with, giving them meat, or I just get very observant when they are given meat, and they absolutely smash it down. They love it, and then when you take it away from them, they cry. And you try and give them vegetables or crap, they spit it out and they scream. And I remember when I was very little, my mother and father used to try and give me green vegetables, and I used to spit it out, sometimes vomit it out. And I realize now the reason why is because it was probably my body saying, yuck, you don't need this. You need meat. But I was forced to eat it, of course, you know. But yeah, it's just something else I'm noticing is that, even babies, 4 to 6 months old, you give them a little bit of steak or something that they're very excited. And I think that needs to be looked into. What should we be feeding an infant? What is the best thing for their development? What is the best thing for the development of their face? And we know now that chewing and all those kind of things is so important from a young age. Um, so maybe we can use this to our advantage. Babies like meat. That must mean meat's good, right?
yeah. I think that, yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means. I do have kids, but, that's as far as my expertise goes. But, like my youngest daughter, when she was still in a high chair, she'd be sitting in the kitchen with me while I was making breakfast early on a weekday morning, and I'd make her. I've always been big on eggs, right?
Mm,
And so I'd make her an egg, and I'd make me a few eggs and whatever, and she absolutely loved it.
mm,
You know, try and balance it out. Put some
mm.
kind of veg on the plate with it, and that's going. One taste in the mouth, and that's it. No, I'm not having any of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and now we go out to a restaurant and she'll eat a steak with me now. I mean, she's 7 years old now, but yeah, she'll eat a steak with me now. And the great thing about that is she'll eat the steak first because that's the tastiest thing on her plate. And by
Mhm,
the time she's finished the steak, she's satiated enough. She doesn't want to eat all the other garbage that's around it,
mm, mm.
you know.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, there's something to kids inherently knowing that that's good for them.
Yeah. Exactly. Um, so yeah, if I'm lucky enough to have children, there will be a lot of steak on their plate. I can guarantee that. And there won't be all the processed garbage that most parents feed their kids. And I mean, it's sad, but you can't help noticing, like, every time you just see a kid and you see them eating sugar and you see your friends giving them sugar, you just want to shake the adults and just say, stop doing this now, please. Because if you do, your child's going to be very, very healthy. Um, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think also it's you start to get a little bit more, I guess, in tune with the reaction to food.
Hmm.
So, like, for example, you give your kid something that's got sugar in it, or you see a friend's kid having something with sugar in it, and you're more quick to realize that's why their energy's just gone crazy. That's why they're just like they're not paying attention anymore. That's why you can't get them to calm down because they
Mm.
just suddenly got high on a drug.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, and then if they're eating a lot of soft food and consuming a lot of sugar, particularly when they're young, they're going to be inflamed in their sinuses, and they're going to go to sleep and they're not going to breathe properly. And then we know that the kids aren't getting a good night's sleep. They're going to go to school and they're not going to be able to concentrate. They're going to be naughty. The behaviour in schools in Australia at the moment is just, it's reaching boiling points. I got quite a few teacher friends that say that they go to school, they don't teach anymore. It's just behaviour management, right? Because kids are that feral, and I think that the food is playing a big role, not only with their nutrition, but the fact that they're not sleeping properly. And I don't know if you follow Dr. Mike Mew. He's an orthodontist in the UK that talks about the development of the jaws and talks about how important it is to chew and to breastfeed from a young age. Um, But yeah, he just goes on and just says, because of our soft diet that we've had for all these years, the kids' jaws aren't developing properly. Your jaw doesn't develop properly. Your sinuses, your air patches don't grow properly, and that's why people don't sleep well, and possibly the reason why we get so sick. Autoimmune diseases, people aren't doing well at school. So there's all these factors that I can see, as clear as the light of day, that I couldn't see 5 years ago, just because I've started to eat better and started to research and can see it in children, in adults, and all sort of stuff. Yeah. So have you heard about that theory with the jaw
Um,
and everything?
I hadn't, but I mean, just when you talk about the sleep improves and stuff like that, that makes so much sense. Like when you're eating properly and the sinuses aren't blocked, and you're no longer breathing through your mouth.
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, things improve. You sleep
Yeah.
better. Oh.
Yeah. So one of the principles of this Dr. Mike Mew and his father is to not breathe through your mouth, and it's the dangers of doing that and what it does to your face long term. To think if you're having to be like this all the time, your jaw sinks down, okay, and then you just get more and more inflamed in your sinuses, and then sometimes nasal breathing just becomes impossible. And there's even a lot of ENTs ear, nose, throat surgeons who are now saying, "Oh, breathing through your mouth's fine. Don't worry about breathing through your nose." Like that. That is crap. That's bullshit. If you can't breathe through your nose, you got some serious issues, and you need to fix that. So this Dr. Martin is all about keeping your mouth closed, keeping your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and making sure you're breathing through your nose and you're chewing hard foods. And it just makes, once you do it yourself and you understand, it just makes so much sense. And of course, people are pushing back against him. He's been to court several times because he's coming up with this idea of like, oh, maybe we don't need all this treatment. Maybe we just need to start eating properly and breathing properly, right? So, and look, to a certain extent, I can understand the other side of things. Obviously, people's bank accounts are going to be affected, and businesses are going to lose all their money. But I mean, what's more important, the health and quality of the human race, or just making sure people can pay their bills? So I would say the first one's more important.
Yeah, especially when you think, as you say, if things are that bad in schools at the moment.
Mm.
I mean, that's the future leaders of the country, like if no one can hold it together, we're in a lot of trouble in the future, right?
Yeah, yeah. I actually get very depressed talking about it because I was a teacher in my younger years before I became a physiotherapist, and I just remember just pulling my hair out, just thinking I don't even know how to get these kids to sit still. It's, if they can't sit still, they're not going to learn anything. And in Australia, we don't have this. You get kept down, you got to repeat the year because you didn't pass everything. We don't have that anymore. That doesn't exist. So the kids just keep getting through, keep getting through, keep getting through.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's no longer a consequence. I mean, maybe in extreme cases it is, but you should have to pass a certain level before you can move on. And that's not a thing. Like I know that would be a thing in a lot of the Asian countries and European countries, but it's not a thing. So kids don't feel that they have the need to study or to work hard, and parents don't even care. Um, yeah, so it's scary to think about, but yeah, I'd say that there is hope, but let's just hope that the government and the medical industry can start making some better decisions.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
So on a kind of on a smaller level, um, how do you feel like how do you feel that word is spreading as far as when you talk to people about it or when you've heard other people talking about it?
I would think the word keto and low carb is getting quite common. So people who are dieting and people who go to the gym a lot of them are now saying that, yeah, I was on keto or I'm on keto, and I feel my best and I seem to be at my fittest and thinnest. So I think that word is becoming quite popular, and I would say naturally people are going to find carnivore from that, because I mean that's how I found carnivore. I don't know if it's how you found carnivore. Um, I would think that there are some doctors out there that are starting to question the system. I don't know about the dietitians. I would love to debate a dietitian actually, but yeah, I would say that's probably it. And then just the growth of YouTube and the fact that people are using YouTube as their entertainment now rather than turning on the TV and watching the mainstream media. Um, So yeah, that they would be the few things. Certainly, the guidelines, the medical guidelines with nutrition are not changing anytime soon. I saw a post the other day about not the food pyramid, but like a food sort of pie chart sort of thing, and there was a bit of red meat in there, but it was lean red meat, and but there was still pasta, rice, and all those things. But they did have like make sure in small amounts, the canola oil. So I think the oil thing is starting to 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 be less popular. Um, but they're certainly not suggesting cook with butter or cook with lard or cook with beef tallow, and we all know that that's very healthy. But so yeah, things are slowly changing. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly. One of the last times I was back in Australia when I was it was when I was visiting Brisbane actually,
Yeah, right.
and I was already doing carnivore at that point. So like I'm staying with my parents. I'm just going out to Coles and buying eggs and meat every day. And the most interesting thing for me was the high fat mince or ground beef that was in the supermarket. That was all that was left if you're going in the afternoon. Everything else had gone. All the lean stuff's gone, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, anything that's got a bit of fat in it is cheaper, and no one wants it. And it's like this is a gold mine for me. This is awesome. It's cheaper and it's better. Yeah,
And I'm assuming that all came to be because they thought the fat and the meat is what raised your cholesterol, right? I'm assuming. Um, but yeah, I mean, anytime I get a bit of steak, I finish the whole thing. There's nothing left on the plate. But see, when I was younger, I was told, don't eat that, don't eat that. That's the fat. Just eat the meat. And people still believe that. I think I was saying to you earlier before we came live, is I did a kilo steak challenge at the Norman Hotel, which is down the road. And obviously, naturally there's going to be a lot of fat on it. And the guy I did it with, he left all the fat to one side and just ate the meat. And for some reason, he still got a prize. I thought you had to finish everything on the plate, but I finished the entire thing. And to be honest, the fat was the nicest part.
yeah. I was going to say, isn't that cheating if you've got a kilo to eat and then you say, "Well, I'm not going to eat 400 grams of it"? That's kind of
Oh yeah, I mean it wasn't 400 grams, but yeah, it was just a little bit of the crisp on the side. We unfortunately had to finish everything on the plate, so I had to eat the potato, the bread. That was part of the challenge, but that's what I was thinking too. I was like, mate, your name's not going to get on the honor board, but they said, well done. So it was just the two of us that did it out of a group of five. But yeah, like why
well,
why is the fat like? Do you think grizzly bears don't eat the fat of the carcass? Do you think they're just eating the lean meat? I don't think so.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, if you had no restrictions, about what you could say, like you didn't have to worry about doctors or dietitians, and a patient comes in to see you, complaining about some joint pain, what would your advice be to them?
Dietary advice or just general advice?
Either or both.
Okay. Well, I mean, as a physio, I would look at all the physical things first, because that's why they're coming to see me. But in the subjective, which basically means just the interview I do with the patient, I always ask, how's your diet? How's it going? And the funniest thing of all is that most people say, my diet's great. I eat real healthy. I'm like, oh, tell me more about it. And then obviously they start saying all the classic things. But if I had no restrictions, I would just be very, very honest and just say, eat more red meat, eat the fat, eat lots of eggs. If you have to eat vegetables and fruit, then go for it. But if you don't want to, then don't eat it. And then I'll just say, you're allowed to have cheat meals every now and then, but it's better not to. I'll just be honest, and I'll just say, look, if you need extra information, here's this YouTube channel, here's this YouTube channel, or look at your YouTube channel or something. That's probably what I would do. And then I would say, well, of course, I eat like this, and I'm in pretty good shape, so I'm pretty healthy.
So if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact, Alex?
I've got an Instagram account, so just Alexander Harris, and that's probably the only two. I don't have a website or anything like that yet. So yeah, so I work for a company. But yeah, that would be it. I'm certainly keen to network with some more like-minded people, particularly in the medical industry. You know, doctors and physios and even dietitians who are starting to get into this space, because I think that would bring some very interesting discussion.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'd love it if you'd come back on again and, talk about how things are going in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. Um, I can tell you, oh yeah, by the way, I lost my license for talking about cholesterol. No, I'm just kidding. A year down the track. Yeah, absolutely. I can do that for you and let you know how things are going. But like I was saying before, like more and more these days, I'm just being honest about my diet, and I just don't care.